Welcome everyone to Getting Started Advertising 101 Small Business Basics, one of the webinars in our series of digital marketing, hosted by the City of Mississauga and presented to you by the Mississauga Business Entrepreneur Center. So a little bit about our host, the Mississauga Business Entrepreneur Center, also known as MBEC. We are your central source for small business information, resources, and guidance. We're part of the City of Mississauga's Economic Development Office. And since March of last year, we are now offering all of our services virtually and available Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Some of the resources that we have are webinars like this. We have workshops. We have entrepreneur programs, some of which we're going to talk about in the following slides, including a young entrepreneur program. And know that we have a whole staff willing to answer questions you have about starting or growing your business. So mississauga.ca/MBEC is the URL that you have to remember. Welcome, Laura. It's all yours.
Okay. All right, so today's presentation is on paid media advertising. I know that it's a big deal when you have to start putting money out and you want to make sure that you're getting the best bang for your buck. So this webinar hopefully will cover everything that you need to know to feel confident about spending money in the advertising space. And I have an agenda here. We're just going to talk about what is paid media, the media outlets, the different forms of paid media, when should I pay for advertising, why should I pay for advertising, how do I determine a strategy? How do I determine my ad budget? I've got a B2C example and I've got a B2B example. Which outlet should I advertise on? The factors to consider. Measuring success, the metrics that you can get. We're going to talk about policies and ad restrictions. I didn't include a slide on diversity and inclusion, but I can touch on that a little bit. We're going to go over creative, some good examples and some not so good examples. Some key takeaways, and I've included a glossary of a few terms just in case there's some unfamiliar terms. You'll have a reference there. Okay, so what is paid media? So paid media is the form of advertising that's backed by money. It's that simple. There's organic form of advertising, there's social, but paid media is backed by money. There's companies that are small and large that reserve a certain amount of money to put towards advertising efforts on a yearly basis based on projections. So they'll monitor their revenue on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, H1, which is first half of the year, H2, second 6 months of the year, determine their budget that way by determining how much income they've had coming in. And they'll reserve a percentage. So if your business is a product or service meant for consumers, that's B2C, business to consumer. You're targeting any person, no matter what they do for a living. And an ideal budget is 5 to 10% of your annual revenue. So for example, Kellogg's, they sell cereal. They are selling a product to any and every consumer. If your business is a product or service meant for businesses, so B2B, business to business, so you're a business targeting a product or service to a specific company or to people with specific work skill sets, then an ideal budget to reserve for advertising is 2 to 5% of your annual revenue. So sometimes companies can offer their products or services to both consumers and other businesses. So if that's the case, they treat them as two separate entities and they'll reserve two separate budgets. So for example, Microsoft, a huge organization, they offer products to consumers and they offer products to businesses. They have a whole line of products that they offer to developers, like Azure, for example. And they also have gaming, they have Xbox. So they'll have budget where they want to advertise their products for consumers to consumers. They have a budget specifically for their business to business pillar, and then they have a budget specified for the year for their Xbox gaming outlet. So I'm going to take you through the media outlets. So there are two forms of paid media, they're known as traditional or digital. So traditional media consists of television, radio, magazine, newspaper, and out of home. Out of home are billboards, transit shelters. If you go out to a restaurant, the washrooms sometimes have those 8.5 by 11 posters there. That's considered out of home. Or the gym, they have posters. So digital media is anything that involves the internet. That's the simplest way to look at it. They're elements that consist of search, social, video, mobile, standard digital display. Traditional media has made great strides, however, and I would say the last 10 years. They're tapping more into digital capabilities. So, for example, you can get magazine subscriptions to your mobile device as opposed to reading print. This was kind of a water cooler talk when COVID first happened. We wondered how many people would be willing to touch paper, pick up a magazine at a grocery store on their way through checkout now to think about like where that's in versus just getting a subscription to their mobile device. So we were wondering if there would be an increase in digital subscriptions. Um, Digital billboards now, a lot of companies have been converting their boards where as opposed to sending a team out to take down an old poster and spackle up a new one, and it would take a team out there all day to do that. They're changing their boards to digital screens and so much more cost efficient and just logistically easier to change the image on the billboard with a flip of a switch on a computer. And they also light up now. And then streaming TV shows on your computer. You don't have to sit in front of the TV and watch 5 minutes worth of commercials. You can watch shows online and just have to sit through maybe 30 seconds worth of pre-roll commercials. So they're making great strides in the traditional formats. So television. Television advertising can be bought in the form of 15-second commercials, 30-second commercials, or sponsorships. Television is by far the most expensive media outlet there is to advertise with. You can buy television spots based on the station, so national versus local TV. So that's the reach. So are you wanting to buy a spot on a station that reaches BC and goes all the way and can reach the East Coast, or you wanting more local TV like your CP24. You can buy television based on the category of show that you want, anything related to cooking, for example, or you can buy based on the specific show you want due to its relevancy and its viewership. So MasterChef Canada, for example, Kraft was a client that I worked on, and they bought a sponsorship with MasterChef Canada for one season. Pretty costly, but their product was integrated in a lot of the chef's recipes through a lot of the episodes, well worth their while for brand exposure. And they had the money to do it, so why not? Television advertising has shifted into streaming services, as mentioned, which continues to become more popular and very beneficial against measurement and cost. So if you're watching TV, how many people actually see the commercials anymore? People sometimes mute the TV, or sometimes people get up, they go get a snack, they go to the washroom. But with streaming, you can get more measurement in knowing the amount of eyeballs that possibly saw the show, and they're weaving in commercials frequently and very short, so you can't really leave your computer screen the same way, so you're more forced to watch them. My mom was in advertising, and we would play this game, and we still kind of play this game. If the commercial is done well enough to, if you mute the TV, does the image show you the brand, the company? Do you understand the message? Do you understand what they're selling? Or is that commercial so reliant on the audio? And then you can play a game in the reverse, where if you're in the kitchen and you can't see the image, I know when I'm cooking, I can hear the commercial and I wonder, is the commercial so, does it need the visual, or can the audio sustain it? So it's kind of a helpful tip in determining whether or not a commercial is good enough. Does when you remove one of the elements, a commercial is good based on, like, if it's just the video, you should be able to know the message. If it's just the audio, you should be able to know the message. The consumer should know. To give you an idea of budgets, these are very broad numbers, and it's all going to depend on the strategy, your product, your service, your brand. It's all going to depend on the research for your specific. But I just threw in a number there: a local approximate monthly television budget, 20,000, national, 500,000. But it's a very expensive medium. Next is radio. So radio advertising is through terrestrial or satellite. It's bought in the form of 15-second commercials, 30-second commercials, or sponsorships like TV. You can buy radio spots based on the station's coverage, city versus a few cities. So if I'm driving up north, I will stop receiving specific channels depending on how far I go. Other stations are much broader. They have broader reach. They can actually touch a few cities. You can buy radio based on the type of genre that you want. If you want country music, pop music, sports news, talk radio, or you can buy based on the specific show that you want due to its relevancy and viewership. Radio advertising has shifted into streaming audio. So we're instead of only being able to reach people via their cars or household radios, you can reach people through podcasts or Spotify as they use their phones. People are sitting at their desk. You can reach them that way as they listen to the radio on their phone, at their desk. You can reach them as they commute, as they're walking to school, walking to work. So the reach is expanded there with streaming audio. And so radio's come a long way. Local approximate monthly radio budget, I would say, is 20,000. National, I would say, is $250,000. These figures are also, when you spend money in advertising, you don't want to just buy a spot. You want to buy a few spots over an extended period of time. You always want to consider the duration with your budget, because there's no guarantee that your audience is going to hear your message just that one time. You want to make sure that they're consistently hearing your message over a period of time. That will also help to determine the audience reach, how many people are possibly listening to your spot. Next is print, a little less costly. Print comes in the form of magazine or newspaper, where you can book different size ads that take up a lot of the page or very little of the page. You can buy a full page ad, half page, quarter page. I've seen ads where it's the size of a business card sometimes in some local newspapers. But different publications divvy up their ad space in different ways. You can buy print based on national or local coverage. Is it a magazine that reaches people in BC, Manitoba, Ontario, the East Coast, or is it more of a local magazine and it's really, you're reaching just the Toronto audience? You can buy ad spots based on the sections of the paper, so business, news, entertainment, sports, or you can buy magazines based on the topic of industry, architecture, real estate, science, technology, gardening. You know the types of magazines that are out there, and it's all going to depend on your target audience. Some publications now offer subscriptions through digital versus print. So I put in a budget there of local approximate monthly print budget is 15,000 minimum. National, you're looking at 100,000. And again, just very broad numbers. The cost is all going to depend on your research, your target, what your product, service, or brand is, your strategy, your overall strategy.
Laura, can I jump in there just to go back to that other slide? You had the print budget in there, but do you know if they have digital only budgets that would be available that might be less expensive?
Oh yeah. Sometimes you can get bookings where you get print and digital. You'll get spots through their print and their digital subscriptions. Sometimes if I look at the research, if I contact a magazine or a newspaper and I ask for their subscriptions, and they give me a number and say like, oh, we have 100,000 subscribers. And then I want their past numbers as well to see if there's a decline in the paper versus an increase in digital. Then I'll ask for their digital, and sometimes their digital is cheaper, but a lot of the times it can be very close. It can be very close.
Okay.
But the thing is too, it's like you get better metrics with digital, and you get more metrics to know if somebody actually saw your ad versus print. Somebody buys a newspaper, my spot's there. I don't know if somebody actually saw that spot on the newspaper, or if they're using that section of the newspaper to line the cage of their bird or something. So
Good
I always,
point.
yeah,
Thank you.
okay. So I would say out of home is probably the second most expensive form of media next to television. Out of home has a vast number of sizes, from giant billboards that you see off the QEW to small 8.5 by 11 posters you may see in the stall of a washroom or at a gym. You can buy spaces based on the location. So if you want a specific billboard that you see off the QEW, you can get the exact address of that billboard from the provider. So like if the billboard off the QEW at the Jameson exit, they'll have an exact address for each board. Places, this is when you contact uh, providers such as Pattison. Um, you can buy space based on the facility. So if companies that sell workout equipment, if you're a company that sells workout equipment and you want posters in all gyms in Mississauga Southwest, you can do a strategy where you're targeting those locations. Out of home suppliers have been shifting away from the old ways, like I said, and they're switching to digital, much better. And it comes with more metrics now. So if you buy an out of home billboard space, they can tell you, because they measure how many people drive by or walk by that specific area. And they can tell you on a monthly basis, there are 50,000 cars that drive by the poster that's located at the corner of this street and this street. And that's great. That's on a good day. But if I'm switching to the digital out of home banners, they can give me an impression count, so I can know that my poster was shown like 1,000,000 times. Like it's you can't obviously get clicks and a click-through rate and some of those digital metrics that you're used to, but it's I think it's nicer because I can mirror a lot to my other strategies to get like a holistic approach. And it's so much easier too. If I need to cancel because there's some sort of scandal behind my client and I need to take down all their advertising, I can't take down an out of home banner that they spackled up. But if I tell them I need to take down just this digital board, they'll take it down for me. The same thing with television. If you have some sort of scandal or there's negative news and you need to cancel your television commercials, you can't do that. You can swap in creative in a lot of cases, but I think it's like they need a minimum of 3 months notice. Like when they book airtime, that's it. You can't just remove it, because then they'll have just blank airtime. So there's so there's a lot of benefits with digital as well, and just being able to have a little bit more control if something happens on the fly.
Is that TV and radio that you would have that problem of
Yep.
like a 3 month? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know.
But yeah, the solution is usually just to swap in creative. So I always make sure that my clients have always on creative. So if they have creative that just talks about their brand, product, or service in a general tone versus sale creative, all of a sudden, like if they've booked a spot to promote a sale and all of a sudden something's happened and they can't run the sale, I can't pull the material. So we'll swap in something that just talks about the brand in a general tone, no sale specific, no date specific creative. So always just make sure that you have that ready to go. There's also, actually, I'll get to the example. I was going to talk about television later in the slide. That's kind of funny. Is there any more questions, or may I proceed? Okay. Okay, so standard digital display. So digital comes in the form of pixel size banners. That's how they measure. They don't measure digital ads in centimeters or inches. It is pixels. It is a specific dimension size. And you can Google it, but the most common sizes are 300 by 600, 300 by 250, 728 by 90, 160 by 600, and a 320 by 50. The 320 by 50 is more on a mobile device. The 160 by 600 is kind of retiring. I would stay away from that unit because as you go on your favorite websites, you'll notice the look and feel of these sites will run the 300 by 250 square banner and then the 300 by 600 banner. So they've kind of substituted out the 160 by 600 for the 300 by 60, and it's so much nicer too. It's broader and it's just got a nicer tone to it. So that's just something to consider if you want to make digital banners for a digital campaign. But those formats are most commonly used. You can advertise with standard digital banners on specific websites or with vendors that offer hundreds or thousands of websites based on categories. So if you want to just target, so I'll use sports equipment again, you offer at-home sports equipment, at-home gym equipment, and you just want to advertise to people who are more on the athletic side, you can just buy spots based on sports sites. So you can buy spots based on business news, food recipes, bicycle enthusiast sites if you're selling bikes. So it's the most measurable form of advertising and it's the least costly. So like your local approximate monthly budget, I have like $5,000 in there. And national approximate monthly digital budget, 25,000. And again, very broad numbers, but that's just to give you just a ballpark of what you'd be looking at. YouTube videos and TrueView. So I've included a slide here on YouTube. So YouTube is a video streaming service that we all know of that continues to evolve at a rapid rate with contributors from all walks of life and from locations all over the world. Video content is uploaded to the platform on a daily basis, and it is unpredictable. Google still can't predict how many videos will be uploaded at one time. And if you're advertising a pre-roll on YouTube, it's hard to just run it and end up with a particular amount of impressions based on budget. They will actually over deliver. So if you put in a budget of like $20,000 for the month, chances are by the time you hit your end date, it'll spill over and it'll say like $21,000 spent, but you don't have to, you won't be paying for that overage. That's on Google. I've spoken to them about that before because I would notice with my YouTube campaigns there was always spillage, but they would tell me trying to stop running your ads because of the amount of videos that are uploaded. It's the equivalent of trying to stop a Ferrari with like 2002 Volkswagen Jetta brakes. Like you're just gonna glide and go through the finish line. You can't stop it on a dime. So just something to consider. Don't panic. Just as long as you put in the correct budget, you should be fine. So there are two ways to use YouTube. So you can upload videos to your own page and organically drive appeal to an audience to come to your page. So that's more of like an organic approach. I would take videos of my rabbits and I would post them to YouTube and I would try to drive appeal there. But rabbits are not popular on YouTube, not like cats and dogs. So I would use keywords, I would use categories, and nothing would happen. I would end up on like page 3 still, and not even in the trending zone. Or alternatively, you can run ads against categories of video content posted by other contributors and drive an audience to your website using TrueView. So if I have a pre-roll, I have a 15-second or a 30-second spot that I've done or a 6-second spot. I can say to YouTube that I'm selling culinary knives. I am selling the best kitchen knives. I want to make sure that I'm targeting people that are interested in do-it-yourself cooking channels, and it will target running my ads on that appropriate content for my brand. So a local approximate monthly YouTube budget, I have found that $20,000 for the month is perfect. Yes, it's expensive, and YouTube is more for awareness than it is in driving people to your site and trying to get them to convert. It is a huge awareness play. You can get conversions, but just keep in mind that it is really more of a, when people are on YouTube, they don't want to go away and like go onto someone's site. They really just want to watch the content that they're there to watch. It's like television. They park themselves, they want to watch YouTube. And social. So social media is the form of engagement technology that allows the creation and sharing of information, ideas, opinions, and other forms of expression via virtual communities and networks. They offer the largest number of diverse ad formats. As we know, there's so many to choose from, and it's a little overwhelming. Um, they offer measurement capabilities and the greatest amount of reach. So you must be careful what you post. Anything on social media because it can come with negative consequences and not just positive publicity. I always tell people watch the words that you use, the tone, the structure. Everything can, it's not always positive. People like to put as much stuff on their social channels as they can, but sometimes it can backfire. And if you try to take, I had a client that posted something on their Facebook page one time, and somebody responded, um, and they took the comment down. They didn't like it. So the brand took the comment down, and an audience noticed that and then started coming at the brand and saying, like, you don't approve freedom of speech. And it kind of snowballed from there. So you just want to be careful. The other kind of trick you can use as well is that you can monitor it very closely and have a layer. So as opposed to somebody just like an external party posting page, you can monitor it and approve it, and then you can make sure it posts. So a local approximate monthly social budget, I said 5,000, but it depends on the social platform. For my clients, I used LinkedIn a lot because I had a lot of B2B clients. With LinkedIn, I found that $4,500 a month was perfect because I was getting the amount of money I'm recommending is the appropriate volume if you want to see good insights and you want to be able to gain analysis on your next play. Anything less, you might not find anything conclusive. You may get like 10,000 impressions and you may get 100 clicks, but the click-through rate, when you compare, it may not tell you anything. It may not look like, and it may just look below average or average. It's not telling you anything. So that's why I always advise, like, because I know Facebook will say, boost this post for $30 a day, and they just want to make money. So just be careful there. You just want to make sure that you have like a good budget behind it. For Facebook, I found that between $6,000 and $8,000 a month was really good for gaining insights and being able to extract findings and say, okay, this is what I need to do with my search. I'm finding these insights, and I can leverage a strategy with search, like that sort of thing.
So, Laura, I mean, many of us don't have like that extreme budget.
Yeah.
So, is there any type of insights that we can pull that would be helpful for us with the advertising? And is it better that we put a bunch of money into 3 months to get insights and then stop? Or is it better to maybe say I only have X amount per year, right? 5% of my X revenue. Should I put months? Should I put it over a long span? And if I don't have that huge amount of budget, can I still collect insights?
Um, I would make sure that you have everything free enabled. that can always help. Like Google Analytics on your website, if you run social and you run for maybe 2 weeks, you may be able to get some insights in Google Analytics against your audience of what you ran on Facebook, but you may not see like anything substantial there. If you run a small budget, you may be able to just determine if you run a couple pieces of creative, what creative is resonating better. That might be something with a small budget that you would see. Yeah, it's really hard for me to make a recommendation. Sometimes I've had clients that want to run a lot of social platforms, and we end up just saying to them, just these two, just do these two. I've told a client they wanted Twitter and LinkedIn, and they were running the same looking image ad on both. And I said, why are we even on Twitter? It's not, you're not really saying anything. You might as well shove that money into LinkedIn, and you'll get findings on the type of category of business that's interested in your product versus Twitter. You won't see that. So it all depends on the brand, the product, the service, and the strategy. But like with paid media, you have to be really picky, and you have to put a lot of thought into everything and a lot of research. So yeah, it's hard for me to say. I want to be able to say, yeah, if you just have $500, sure, just throw it up on Facebook. But I can't recommend that. Even if you run something for a week, you really don't get any findings. All you know is that you ran a certain amount of impressions. So you've really just done a brand awareness strategy. But maybe your ultimate goal was to drive people to the website, not really getting that with that kind of money. You're really just getting brand awareness.
So this really has to, what I'm hearing you say, is be part of your overall digital marketing strategy from your organic channel strategy to
Yeah.
your paid, right? So it has to be considered all together. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. If
You want to
anyone
make
else has questions too, let me know in the chat.
you want to make sure that you're doing as much organically as you can too. And that'll help if you don't have a lot of budget. So yeah.
Okay. That is good to know for sure.
So next slide, search engine marketing. So search engine marketing, it's a form of internet marketing that involves the promotion of websites by increasing their visibility in the search engine results page. So you bid on keywords that pertain to your product or service to ensure your websites appear in a person's search query when they search online through Google or Bing. So I have camping equipment there as an example. It's kind of an old example. So with search, you always want to be on. So with your search, that's usually the first thing that I recommend in a strategy is for products and services. Search is key, search is king. And you always want to be on 12 months of the year. So it doesn't mean it, I mean, you don't have to have a huge budget. It depends on your audience, and it depends on the product or service that you're selling. You could run for like $500 a month. It depends on the keywords that you're bidding on as well. So are you selling camping equipment? And so your product would be most popular in the summer. Those keywords, because you're competing against other camp equipment suppliers, those keywords could be most expensive in the summertime, spring and summer. So you would just reserve a larger budget during those more competitive times and more popular times. So search is flexible, but you always want to be on. You don't want to run search for just like 1 month or 2 months. You can also determine just what's the most popular time of year for your product or service. But yeah, search, I always recommend to be always on. So again, budgets could be as low as 500 a month could be as or 20,000, could be as high, low and high nationally from 25,000 to $500,000. Car companies, for example, like they run $1 million a year just in search. Just advertising all their different brands. I don't know that there's a more popular time to buy a car. They're always throwing a lot of dollars behind it, and the competition is very fierce for the automotive industry. So that's why they have such big budgets as well. Okay, so when should I pay for advertising and why? So when? This is a big decision to start putting money into your advertising. So you should consider running paid media when you have properly exercised all the efforts you can do for free with owned and social, and yet you still want more customers. Um, so do you have a website with tracking enabled, like Google Analytics? So that way you can monitor the volume of visitors. And do you have an understanding of their interests? Um, the interests of your website visitors, you really want to know your target. You really want to know for your product, service, your brand, who is your target. And sometimes people don't, like companies don't know until a couple years. Then they really hone in on like who their target is. I've seen companies where they write like a full psychological description of who their exact target or product or service. It's kind of funny. There was a Stephen Colbert um, I think it was a Crackers ad, Crackers marketing campaign where he like read through what the marketing team put together. It's funny. I'll see if I can find the link after. Um, so do you have Google My Business up and running? That's a good platform for a local business. Are you regularly monitoring it and consistently posting updates? So if you just post an image a day of your business, your product, your service, you have the ability to post on Google My Business as well for free, do free posts. Are you engaging with people who post reviews? So you need to make sure that you're consistently following and responding to people that post reviews and comments. Sometimes things can get out of hand when somebody posts a negative review or just a comment and not very many stars. And when you don't respond, it makes a difference psychologically as well to someone in the consideration stage. So somebody posts a review and says, "Oh, I wasn't really happy with your service." Da da da. If you respond on Google My Business and you say, "Please contact us, let us know, explain the situation, let's see if we can rectify that," people kind of go, "Oh, well, they care." That's pretty good. So it can really persuade psychologically your consumer the way you engage on Google My Business. Do you have all appropriate social media platforms? So are you regularly monitoring content and consistently posting updates? Are you responding and engaging with your audience? So my business is advertising. Not all social platforms are a fit for me. I'm really just on LinkedIn and Facebook. That's it. I'm not on Instagram. Maybe if I worked out of the house in an office and I could post fun pictures of what we're doing in the office today, but really, those social media platforms are it. And I'm consistently posting on a weekly basis. If I were a restaurant or a hair salon, posting to like Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, all those fun platforms, and just posting something every day or even just multiple times a day makes a difference. I have a friend who owns a cafe in Montreal, and uh, she posts in the morning and she posts in the evening because she wants to appeal to a customer base on their way into work and just showing them what they can get in the morning. And then on their way home from work, she wants to grab them again. She wants to show them, well, here's a nice dessert that you can have after dinner tonight. So she'll post again, and she knows her audience. She knows that they come and go and they're just on their way. So you want to make sure that you're doing everything you possibly can for free before you start thinking about putting money behind advertising. And then why? So it's actually proven that with paid media advertising, it helps boost the level of brand awareness and can drive more visitors to your website um, and or your brick and mortar store if done correctly. I mean, I've seen people put money behind their advertising and they didn't drive as many sales as they were hoping, and it sucks. It sucks to get the result that you weren't looking. It sucks to not get the results that you were hoping for. Um, so it really takes a lot of research and strategy. Form strategies using the different media outlets to draw attention to your product or service. And if you have enough money, you could even do all of them and fully engulf a person in your brand as they move throughout the day. So I have here an example of Peloton. I would get up in the morning when I lived in Toronto and I would turn on the TV and I would see a Peloton ad, Peloton commercial. And then I would leave my place and start walking to work, and I would see Peloton on a billboard. And then I would get into work and I would log into my computer and I would go on BNN and I would be served a Peloton ad. And then I would leave work and there's a Peloton store that they're putting up right in front of my work. So they really got me, and I definitely was their target because I'm athletic. I like to work out, and so I did end up going into the store. And I mean, they have the budget to do that sort of thing and to do it nationally and to fully engulf you in their message. And like that's what a good strategy can do. It's a really big example, $1 million example, but I thought it was kind of fun. So just like organic or efforts put forth with social, consistency is key. So you just want to be consistent. If you're running search for the full year and you discover that your most popular times, you're making the most money, people are buying your product or service in May, June, and July, those are your more popular months, you may want to also all of a sudden amplify your presence in social media, or you may want to people are out and about, you have a brick and mortar you need to send them to, uh, people are around your location at a particular time, you may want to consider out of home and just engulf them and just see if they can you can get them to come into your store. So there's a couple strategies that you can throw together, or you could just do one or another.
So, Laura, before we move on, there is a question. You mentioned monitor and approve posts. The question is, can this be done on Facebook and other social media platforms? And maybe can just explain what that really means and how that can be done.
Yeah, you can do that on Facebook and Instagram. I know we were doing that for one of our health clients. I'm not sure with the other platforms, but then there are also companies that will, or you can do this yourself. You have like a fake account, like a fake Facebook account, and then your real account. And then so as questions come in, and the messages aren't public, you can just take what they're saying, copy and paste into the live one if you approve them or not. So there are companies that will do all the legwork for being kind of a monitoring system, and they'll take comments off the mock page, or if there's bad comments, they'll just not worry about posting them to the real live page, the page that is for public viewing. So that's how they do it. Other than that, it's like you have to kind of be watching at every minute. That's the other alternative. When we had a pharmaceutical client, unfortunately, two assistants had to be on at all times. They had to have their phone, like as soon as a comment, there was a ping, and it didn't matter what time of day it was. They had to just jump on immediately and see the comment to see if it should be allowed to be posted or not. It can become kind of tedious to monitor that way.
Are there any third-party solutions that allow for that to be? Because I know Hootsuite does that for monitoring organic stuff, and I think they do have an ad platform. You don't know of any other ones that where you can both have roles viewing and then have that, hey, I'm going to post this. Do you have to approve? Like having a process built in?
I don't have a third party that comes to mind, or a
Okay.
process. Yeah, sorry.
We will look into that
Mhm.
and see if I can follow up with that as well. So thanks for that question. Thanks for the answer, Laura. That was great. Okay.
How do I determine a strategy? So you really have to know your target. Factors to consider. When you look at your target audience, you need to consider the demographic. What is the age range and gender of audience I need to target? The geography. Where is my audience located? Um, the psychographic attributes. So, what are the interests of my audience? If I'm a restaurant and I discover through my Google analytics that people were coming to my restaurant site to view the menu after exploring yoga sites and websites that offer yoga tips, and it's been consistently these types of findings for a few weeks, I might, as a business, consider partnering with a local yoga studio or a few of them in the neighborhood. There's something about like my restaurant that a yoga enthusiast really likes. So there's kind of interesting tidbits that you can get through some of these platforms about your audience. What should my advertising budget be? So what is my revenue on a weekly, monthly, and yearly basis? You just want to constantly know your revenue. You just want to keep track of the dollars all the time. You always want to know the amount of money coming in. Is it did we make a good profit? Didn't we make a good profit? What does that look like from last year? What does that look like from last month? You constantly want to be monitoring your income. When should I advertise? So when am I most profitable? Is it during a certain season? Is it during a certain month, certain quarter, certain half the time of the year? Why is it the most profitable time of the year? So unfortunately with paid media advertising, there's a lot of just questions that you ask. I've never been able to just come up with a strategy for a client without there being a ton of questions, and they pick apart the strategy to like the nth degree. It's a constant battle of trying to find the right formula. And how do I determine my ad budget? So I came up with some scenarios. They're kind of lame. I'm not very good at putting together like like fun stuff. So I have an example here of Sally's dog daycare. So Sally's 2020 revenue shows a weekly profit of 625. Her monthly profit is coming in at 2,500 a month on average. So she predicts that her yearly profit will be 30,000. She's going to take a very conservative budget of 5% because her business targets consumers, so just anyone who has a dog. And she's going to look at her possible ad budget, what that would equate to. So those numbers times the 5%. And are these numbers strong enough for Sally to advertise this year? Not quite. She's kind of almost there, but there's probably a lot of that Sally can assess about her business and her social presence and her just brand presence online and just offline. There's probably things that she can do for free to see if she can before she starts putting money out into paid media advertising. Okay, so the next year, 2021, Sally's revenue, her weekly profits are coming in at 1,500, monthly 6,000, yearly she's now at 72,000. So she's making a little bit more money. So I guess she was doing a lot organically and socially. She was doing a lot to understand her customer, and she was being very active online. So her potential ad budget is a little bit bigger, so that's not bad. But Sally can reserve the money that she made last year that she wants to put towards advertising and use it in her 2021 advertising. So we can bulk that together. And so now her budget is 5,100, so that's a little bit better. So of that budget, what can Sally do? So we would know Sally's target, we would know her location, how far she can go to collect dogs and take them for walks. You have to think about the radius too. So $5,100 is a healthy advertising budget for a 4-week digital campaign or social or a few months of search. So that's not bad. So she can figure out what to do there. More research has to come, but she's on it. She's made a good start.
Laura, I'm sorry, I just want to pause
Yeah,
because
sorry.
this is really important. Like what you've put together, and your scenario is great. Just saying, I love this. And you helped us get through this right to the end to even say what kind of things. But from what we're hearing in this, and I know we speak about this a lot, is really focusing on your organic, right? Getting your
Yeah.
business in order, knowing your brand, building your organic social platform, really figuring out what content, who you are, build that engagement, drive sales in that free way. Absolutely take that free to the next level, build your budget, put it aside, and then really take that money. And when you finally have a healthy budget, and then supplement what you're currently doing in your free to get this. This is a challenge many of us have because we just want to pay to build it and we don't know how to do it in a free way. And I just want to say to all our attendees and thank you for putting this together because this example is amazing. So thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to move over to the business to business scenario because I did one for B2B as well.
Excellent.
So Bill's Bill's business app. So Bill came out with an app for project managers. So he is targeting people with skill sets, people who are in a specific industry, specific companies. So Bill's 2020 revenue, you can see his weekly profit looks to be about $1,000. And again, Bill's keeping track of his revenue. He's constantly looking at the dollars. His monthly profit is averaging at around 4,500. His yearly profit is coming in at 55,100. So a little better than Sally in her first year, but Bill's gonna use a not so conservative budget of 5% because he's B2B. And he's going to look at his potential ad budgets, what they would look like on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, and a yearly basis. So are these numbers strong enough for Bill to advertise this year? Not so much. Bill's going to hold off. He's going to just reserve that money and he's going to do more with organic and more that he can do for free. So we're into the next year and it's 2021 and Bill's looking at his numbers again. So his weekly profit is now 580, monthly 2,430, yearly 29,000. So Bill's actually lower than he was the previous year. So even taking a 5% again, potential advertising budget, Bill's numbers are a little bit lower. So what happened with Bill? So these numbers don't look as good as 2020. So here's what Bill's doing. So Bill needs to determine the ease of using his website. So Bill's actually got a really complicated website and he realized, so he's now going to audit his whole entire presence. Bill's website is a little too complicated to use. It doesn't flow very well. People, when they land on the page, their eyes jet around all over the place. So Bill's going to redesign his website. So also Bill does not have Google Analytics on his website. He has no tracking enabled to know about his customers that land on his website. So Bill's going to install a Google Analytics pixel on his site. So he's been using the wrong social media platforms. Bill has been using Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, when Bill should have been on LinkedIn the whole time. Poor Bill. So Bill's going to build a LinkedIn page. That's what Bill's going to do. And he's going to write articles on his product, how to use his products, and then post with hashtags. And he's going to do it on a weekly basis. Then Bill's going to assess his efforts and compare his revenue again after 3 months, after a certain amount of time. So I purposely made the scenario a bad one because it doesn't always go well the following year. Like nobody was going to be able to predict COVID. They had to kind of scrap everything they knew and start again and try to figure out what they can do. So that's like Bill's scenario here. Bill has to figure out what he can do and just audit his whole presence. So yeah, that's my B2B scenario. And again, like it's when you can just post consistently through the free stuff, it's always a really great start. And just getting as much research you can on your target and who's buying your product, why are they buying your product or service, why you, why not your competition, what makes you stand out. There's so much that you constantly ask yourself the why, and you just pick apart your own strategies. It's great.
And Laura, that is a really good scenario because in the professional services and the B2B, so especially in a consulting business, in my experience, you have to go back to figure out where are you getting your leads, and quite often it's because of your thought leadership, right? And it's your referral traffic, and really it's building that brand awareness. So you're not going to spend in the same way or get the same results as say a dog walker who's just somebody has joined the community and just looks for dog walkers nearby because they don't have a relationship already established. So making sure we integrate the paid media into your whole sales and marketing strategy is so crucial. And I love how you've said that it has to be research and we have to always be analyzing to figuring out what's working and why. Yeah, thank you.
And which outlet should I advertise on? So this is looking at the same factors again. So you're looking at these platforms, you're looking at even the traditional media, and you're saying to yourself, okay, so what platform or media outlets reaches my intended audience? You look at the demographic again, you look at the geography, and you look at the psychographic details. So does this medium allow me to reach the right demographic? What's my demographic? Geography. Does this medium allow me to reach the right audience in the right location? Um, Psychographic. Does the medium allow me to reach my audience based on the right fit of interest? That's always a key one. What platform is going to give me the best bang for my buck? Again, I wish I could say to you, like, oh, yeah, 20 bucks a week is perfect for Facebook. Facebook's telling you, like, I know when I post organic stuff from my site, Facebook's like, you can boost this for $20 a week. And I'm just thinking, no, I can't with, no, no, this is not, I can't guarantee that with that kind of money, I'm going to get in front of the right eyeballs. So it's just not worth it. I'm reserving my funds. What metrics are going to help me to progress? So there's a lot of question behind metrics. How are you going to record what a success is? That's another big thing that the clients that I get sometimes forget. They just immediately think sales, but we have to figure out what metrics you can get in these platforms that's going to correlate to the success of a sale. So I'm going to jump to this next slide to just talk about measuring success. So there are some in-person factors like number of quotes requested and given for your product or service. Are you monitoring that? Do you know how many people are reaching out to you on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis? The number of bookings for a service, number of sales of a product, the certain dollar amount accumulated in a day, a week, a month, how that compares to the past based on the sales of a product or service. Website. So there's some measurement you should consider about your website. So number of quotes requested through a form. Maybe you have a form on your website with a little submit button. Do you have a pixel on the submit button to track how many people clicked submit? Do you have tracking elements in the form fields on your website? How many fields were filled out before someone gave up and just decided not to bother submitting the form because maybe your form is a little too long, so you can compare how many people bailed on the form versus fill the whole thing out and submit. You may need to kind of assess your website there and say, like, I need to make this shorter. I need to make it easier for people to contact me. And again, that's stuff that you can find out with a lot of tracking. There's a lot you can do for free. Number of emails received for an inquiry of your product or service. Keep count of that. If you're just doing it yourself and just looking at the number of emails that you get in the course of a day, week, month, is it increasing? Is it decreasing? Number of visitors to the website. The amount of pages I have on my website that were viewed, the time spent. Are people just clicking on my ad, going to my website, and then leaving immediately because there's a bounce rate metric showing 100%? Or are they on the page for a little bit and they're poking around a bit on my site? They're there, they're interested. I did end up getting my ad in front of the correct audience. So there's a lot to dive into, but I just put up a couple of factors there. And to give you, just to kind of sum up metrics. So for television, they go by GRPs. It's the number of viewers. So when you want to book television advertising, you need to consider the amount of viewers that their channel reaches, their show reaches. Radio listeners, how many listeners do they get on a monthly basis? Print readers, how many readers do they get, or versus how many subscribers? Some newspaper and magazine sites have a paywall. Other people post free content, so the numbers could be a little bit better with the free guys then your target could be people that actually pay for a subscription to the Globe and Mail, and therefore you would have to consider that they have a paywall. So readers, subscribers, are they increasing, decreasing? Are they going from print more to digital? Out of home, daily traffic that's been recorded, weekly traffic, monthly traffic, is it increasing? Is it decreasing? In this area, is there something going on in the area? Is there construction? And I just bought a billboard for a month where there's construction, and so if people are rerouting that route, there's so many things to consider. digital. So you've got standard digital display banners, impressions, which are the number of viewers, clicks, the click-through rate. The click-through rate just helps you determine the amount of clicks you got in comparison to the amount of impressions that you got. So you could get 1 million impressions with one website, but only got 100 clicks. That's a terrible click-through rate. Versus if you got fewer impressions with one site, so maybe you got like only 10,000 impressions with another site, but you got 5,000 clicks. That's a way better click-through rate. So you didn't get as many impressions because people just sometimes think that impressions are great. But you really have to look at the click-through rate, the math there, of how many clicks you're getting in comparison to your impressions. And then conversions. So a conversion is any action performed on a website. A conversion is unique to the brand, the product or service. So a conversion could be the amount of form fills that were filled out, the amount of emails that were sent. Conversions could be the number of people that landed on my website. Then a conversion could be the number of people that landed on my website and stayed for at least 2 minutes. So conversions can be whatever you want to make them. Social. Sorry. You have a
So, oh, yeah, and just a question, and I know that's a lot of information, and some of this terminology isn't always clear. So clicks to website, is that not, so the website is not part of the banner? So if you have a banner ad on a digital magazine and they click on that ad, is that not a click-through rate? Like, is that not a click-through to your website? What's the difference between maybe those three things, those three clicks?
Okay, so I mean, it's kind of like with social. Social gives you two different metrics. They give you like click on your ad, like a click on the ad, but they've posted a comment or they've done a share or they've done a like, and then social will give you click um, through to link or click to link, and which is the amount of clicks people clicked on your ad, your social ad, and went to your website. So they're giving you two different types of clicks there. And it all depends what your goal is. But yeah, you'll get someone who sees your banner ad wherever it is. If it's click and they click on it and drive to your website, that's a click. That's a click. The click through rate is just when looking at the numbers broadly and you're seeing how many impressions that you got. So your ad appears, it appears again, it appears again, nobody's clicking. And then finally it appears, someone clicks on it. So it's like you've run 6 impressions and then it's taken like the 7th impression and then someone decides to click. But then if somebody clicks on your banner, goes to your website, was it the appropriate target that clicked on your banner and went to your website? Are they on your website and intentionally, or did they just accidentally click on your banner, go to your website, and went, oh shoot, I didn't mean to go there, and then they leave immediately? And so website tracking can tell you the rest of that story because you only ever see only part of the story. Like once upon a time, Little Red Riding Hood went into the woods to take a lunch to her grandma, and then the end. Her grandma eventually died. It's like, what happened to the rest?
Right.
Right? So,
And that's where those Google, the UTMs, the special tracking codes, right, can take you through and then they can track where you go afterwards, right? Like, and then you can click the form so we can actually track where they came from the ad to your page and then filled out the form. Am I correct in that? If you
well,
have a
kind of.
tracking code?
The UTM tracking code that you get that you put on your banner ads from Google Analytics just allows Google Analytics to record um, what platform somebody clicked through from. Um, and it will give you more metrics there. But if you want to record um, elements on your website, well, that's when you're looking at pixel tracking and conversion tracking, which is a different set of code from UTM trackers.
Right, and that's where you get into the Google Tag Manager too, right? It's a whole complex
Yeah.
thing as well. But you can do it, is what you're telling us. And then, and really what I'm hearing too is you want to see the whole story. You want to be
Right.
able to
Yep.
make sure that you take them from your ad, you're tracking what they're actually doing, engaging, where they're going, how long they're staying, and are they actually converting to clients. So great metrics. Thanks for that explanation, Laura. Appreciate
For
that.
scenario though, I'm not good at thinking on the spot. Sometimes my scenarios will get morbid, but
No, it's all good. It's great. Thank you.
okay. Um, Continue there with social and search and website analytics. Just if you want to make a note, a good bounce rate is anything below 85%. Anything more than 85% tells me that, like 100%, 95%, 90% tells me that somebody's landing on your website and immediately leaving. You'll also have the scenario of performance where you've gotten good number of impressions, good number of clicks, really good click-through rate, considered above average, and you want to know with that above average click-through rates, did people land and stay on your website? Because what will happen is sometimes agencies will push things to perform where the goal is just a high click-through rate. And what ends up happening is your ads will sometimes appear on apps, gaming apps, and they're so susceptible to accidental clicks. So people are playing, clicking, and then they click through to your website by mistake, and then they leave, and that happens so much. So you always have to look at your bounce rate and say, okay, this is decent. It's below 5%, 80%, 75%. And I always try to get it as low as possible. So 85% is my threshold. I'm trying to get it lower. So I'm thinking, what else can I do in my strategy to make sure that I'm getting the right person to my website? So I'm trying to get it lower. I'll check next week. It's down to 65. Perfect. Time spent on website. So you can just, again, with Google Analytics, you get some metrics there to see how long they were on your website for. Page views and the desired action taken or conversion. So what have we defined as that? Policies and restrictions. So there is such a thing as the advertising police. They're not called that, but it is a well-monitored industry. We're not just doing things free will, just freely doing whatever we want. It is monitored. For example, cannabis ads cannot appear anywhere where a minor could potentially see them. I was going home from work one time, it was 2018, I was taking the subway, and I noticed that there were cannabis ads in the subway along the top banner, and I knew that that was going to come down in like 2 seconds. I can't believe that they actually accepted running those banners. It was gone the next day. They were pulled immediately. There have been commercials that have been pulled immediately as well. I worked on a client that put out a commercial and didn't realize until somebody called in and complained that it looked like it was promoting date rape. Yeah, so that was pulled immediately. And again, because it's broadcast, you can't just pull because you would end up with dead air. So they had to swap in their generic creative. There's actually two friends of mine on the call today, and they probably know that exact client that I'm speaking of, that exact scenario, because they worked on the account at the time too. But there's always someone monitoring, and people will call in and say, like, I don't like this ad that I see, it's so inappropriate, or false misrepresentation. So it's a well monitored industry. And there are rules and regulations, and there are boards, and they do uh, vote on things. And so, like, I have a timeline chart here, for example. In the 80s, it was determined that you can't advertise to children under 13 in Quebec. Around 2003, cigarette packets then had to have warning labels and those really gnarly pictures on them. In 2010, commercial volume can't be louder than the TV show. There was a time, I don't know if you guys remember, when it sounded like the TV commercials were so loud in comparison to the show. And that was done on purpose. That was so if people got up and left the room, you're still hearing their commercial. In 2018, GDPR, there's a really good documentary called The Great Hack. It's a good documentary because it explains how people's data that they entered on social media, their opinions, their beliefs, how that was all categorized and then sold. It's a really good explanation in how really good digital advertising with no limit of funds is done, and no limit of creative, and just constantly all year round. So GDPR regulations can't sell people's data. Cannabis is legalized, and the amount of restrictions that came with advertising for cannabis. And then in 2020, um, credit unions can't advertise to postal codes anymore. You can't target areas, like credit unions can't target areas where they think it'd be a low income area, that sort of thing. So there are restrictions there. I think Twitter doesn't allow for any ads related to politics on it. So constantly changing, and we have to abide by rules.
Laura, do you have a link on where we can stay up to date on some of these ads? Is there a central place for that?
There's no central place. You have to just read about the platforms. If you're like I was always having to just constantly in my spare time go on Google, read their new policies, or I'd get like an update because I was affiliated with a large agency and they were sending out like their usual email letters and saying that their policies had changed. As a small business, I get TikTok and Snapchat notifications of their new terms and conditions, their new policies. I'll jump on their site. I'll take a little read through whenever I'm dealt with a new product, service, or brand. And they mention that they're interested in a particular platform, I will go on the particular platform's website and read about it. With the traditional stuff, it's a little harder to tell. If you deal with a rep who you're trying to buy space with, they should have that knowledge and they'll tell you what's allowed, what's not allowed. Which is kind of shocking to see, like the cannabis ads in the subway. The subway rep should have known to tell the cannabis client, like, no, you can't run that stuff. So sometimes it's hit and miss.
Okay, great. Thank you. Lots to always stay on top of. So
I'm
that's
sorry,
really
there's
important.
never a clean cut answer. There's always just so many like branches. Um, sorry.
That's okay. It's what it is.
I'm gonna, I don't know if you can hear my hound dogs in the background. It's hard to just get them to stay quiet for a considerable amount of time. Creative. So I've got some good creative examples. So what I will tell you, and not some good examples, but I've got TD there. TD's always killing it with really great ads, always hitting it with diversity inclusion. You've got every kind of couple, every kind of person from every walk of life. So lifestyle ads perform the best. And it's because of the communication psychology behind them. I worded this exactly how I wanted to. While not as subliminal as advertising used to be, because you remember the old subliminal messages, and I think it was Pepsi vending machines in the 90s had the sexual context pictures in the ice cubes or something. Um, the idea is that our intended audience possibly sees themselves enjoying the product or service when they see others like them do so. So that's the whole intent. That's the psychology behind it. If I see someone like me eating McDonald's in the morning for breakfast, I think maybe I should start incorporating McDonald's in my morning routine for my breakfast. It's there, and you don't know that it's there. You don't consciously know that it's there. It just sometimes happens. So use creative imagery that appeal to the demo of persons you want to target. So I can't target people and platforms based on race, religion. I don't even know if I can do it by income now. So you want to make sure that in your creative, you're featuring the people that you want using your product or service, and it could be everyone from all walks of life. Then you'll just have more creative, um, especially since there are new restrictions in platforms to do with targeting. So, like I said, I can't target people based on race. If you want to target a particular minority of person, just make sure that in your creative you are featuring a person of a specific background that you want to reach, or just anyone and everyone. Good creative. So I wanted to just highlight here that I think the world of McDonald's, and I don't even eat McDonald's. Um, McDonald's has the best marketing strategy I've ever seen in my life, I've ever seen since working in advertising. So, and I'll explain why. I always just say, if you want to know what to do, follow what McDonald's is doing. Um, they're the fastest brand at keeping up with societal change. So when diversity inclusion was happening, Black Lives Matter, what did McDonald's do? They were the first ones to run commercials with people of color when Black Lives Matter protests were happening, when everyone had to be in COVID lockdown. They immediately switched out their creative to show the family incorporating McDonald's into their new lockdown lifestyle of their family game night. McDonald's also was the first company, and I always compare McDonald's to Tim Hortons, and again, I just think McDonald's kills it, and they're just like Tim Hortons is just not quite there. McDonald's promotes every way in which to order their food, so which is every revenue stream. McDonald's was showing you commercials on their app. They were showing you how to use their app, how to use curbside pickup. They were showing you how someone's going to deliver the food to your parked car outside the restaurant, drive through, using Skip the Dishes, DoorDash. They were promoting every possible way in which to buy their food. That's amazing. They showcase their product, how it works its way into your daily routine. Again, McDonald's is showing you a commercial about like every person, every race, every walks of life, every kind of appearance, anyone who's everyone is ordering McDonald's, and they're showing you. They had a commercial talking about your morning routine and how everyone from different walks of life orders their breakfast in the morning, and shows you how that just works its way into your routine, like the family on Friday nights playing game night. McDonald's also partnered in time with a sport that generated the largest hype. I don't even think we've had a sports hype in Toronto since like 1993 when the Blue Jays won the World Series. I think that's as long as it's been. And then the Raptors, their championship, and McDonald's is right there. How perfect for McDonald's. And then McDonald's keeps up with the reputation of a good corporation. So yeah, Tim Hortons has their Camp for Kids, but if you've ever watched those Ronald McDonald's House ads, they really pull at your heartstrings. If somebody said to me, I'm giving you $1,000 to put towards one charity, I'm probably going to choose Ronald McDonald House because of the way it positions its messaging, every word that it uses to just grab at your heartstring, and how well they've established that charity and the explanation of what their charity does. So you're kind of probably saying to yourself, great, that's $1 million worldwide corporation. How am I supposed to follow what McDonald's does? So I'll break it down. So if you're a small product, small service, small business entrepreneur, you're constantly wanting to just showcase the people that you work with, the people that work at your company, the history. You want to showcase what you stand for. I mean, are you a company that believes in the environment, sustainability, wildlife preservation? There's so much that things that mean something to you. You can promote that. You can show that. You can show how you're dedicated to that. You can show all the ways to order your product or service, and you can just show advertising with lifestyle ads how your product or service should work its way into someone's routine, why someone needs your product or service over the competition. So you kind of have to break it down, but McDonald's is just killing it, and they have for decades. They have the best marketing team, like I said, I've ever seen. One client, the one client I've never worked on, which is ironic. So, so I've had a lot of bad creative that has crossed my path. If I were to show you examples of bad creative, it would cost me. I would be a lot of trouble for me legally. So what I did was I just made some points, and then I just threw up a square with some font. I'm sorry. So I've had creative that crossed my path that I've gone back and said, can you make it a lifestyle image? I've had clients that just give me a colored banner, a blue banner with white font before, and maybe a click through, a button to click through, and only the button was clickable. So you want to really tear apart your own creative. So does your creative have a logo, whether it's digital or traditional? Is your logo prominently there? Is it very easy to spot? If you're doing something with digital, animation works better. A 3-frame GIF always works really well, like a transitional GIF. You need a lifestyle image. Are you showing the people that you want to target in your ad? Are you showing people using your product or service. Does your ad have good copy? So it needs better copy that provides more context and directive wording. So sometimes people just have a couple of words, a sentence up there, and you kind of say to yourself, well, if my copy was more directive, that kind of tells people to take an action, like, or ask them a question. Does your kitchen need an upgrade? Or have you ever wondered what a kitchen reno would actually cost you? Like just something that provokes them. You want to think about that in your copy. You don't want to just say like, come to my store. It's not really telling them anything. And sometimes you can use great performing keywords if you've been doing search, and take those keywords and you can put them in your digital display banner copy or your social copy. They're performing well for a reason. You could look up trending topics or hashtags and consider using those words in your copy somehow. That's one of my little strategies that I tell my clients that blows their mind. They've never even thought of doing that. Your ads need to be aesthetically pleasing. No negative space. I've had ads that come across my computer and there's so much negative space that it's just not aesthetically pleasing. It's just kind of all over the map. Or like the copy's really small, but then the image is really big and you lose the copy in the coloring of the background. It just wasn't the right font color to use. Also make sure that if you're doing digital ads, you have a call to action. So like sign up, contact us, learn more. And you've got like a button, what looks like a button. But then make the whole ad clickable, not just the button. Yeah, so digital ads need to be entirely clickable. I've had clients that gave me an ad and only the button was clickable, but the entire ad was not. And you miss out on people not being able to click on, you'll miss like 50% of your audience that way. So just make sure it's entirely clickable.
So what platform is that? Because I know on social, on when we do Facebook ads and things like that, they don't give us that option of what's clickable and what's not. Is that
Oh, it's just standard digital display ads. So
okay?
if you're just running digital display ads on certain websites, not through a particular platform, not through a social media platform.
Ah, digital display ads. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So key takeaways. So hopefully through all my rambling, you've taken away some good nuggets of information. So paid media advertising is advertising that is backed by money. Types of media outlets available with paid advertising are in the form of both traditional and digital, and there are a lot of them. There are a lot to choose from. You should pay for advertising when you've exercised all your free options and when you still aren't satisfied with the amount of revenue generated. You kind of just want more. Factors to consider when producing a paid media strategy are the demo, geo, and psychographic characteristics of your audience. So do your research. You got to really know your target. And sometimes it can take like a year, 2 years to really know your target. Determining an ideal budget is 5 to 10% of your revenue against B2C and 2 to 5% of your revenue against B2B. It's smaller because it's a smaller niche. Factors to consider when determining which media outlet is best for your strategy and budget require you to look at the demo, geo, and psychographic reach. Um, Measuring success should align with your business goals, and advertising metrics to consider should lead back to those business goals. So it's like plotting out a map. When you go somewhere, you want to know your way back. So it's like building a map. Here's my strategy, here's my business goals, they're aligned. These are the platforms and tactics I'm going to be using. What metrics am I going to record? The metrics, how does that translate to the metrics that I'm recording on my website? How do they talk to each other? And what is that ultimately going to tell me in the end? So it's like building a story or building a map. There are policies that influence our ability to deliver paid advertising, and these policies are always changing. I find myself on a quarterly basis going into the platform's terms, conditions, new policies, and reading. There's a lot of reading in my line of work. I hate to admit it. There's not one source to go to. I mean, you can just Google search it also. You just type in like new policies with Twitter. It'll probably bring you the page and you can just read on the new policies, or it'll give you a date stamp too. And you can see how like when that was logged. Factors that set apart the good creative from the bad creative. Again, I couldn't show you some of the bad creative. There's been a few that have been just really hilarious that I've had to send back. But again, it would not be good for my reputation to show you some of these clients bad creative. So hopefully you guys got the factors that really will, I mean, if you're going to spend this kind of money, you want to make sure that you're set up for success and that you've got the best creative that you're running. You've got just everything 100%. You're doing the best you can. Yeah.
So on that last point, Laura, about the creative, so often, and I'm wondering if you can help with this, but when we do our organic, we start to see what's working and what's not working with your target audience too. And couldn't we take some of what we've learned through our free organic creatives to actually support us in the design of our paid, right? That would
Yeah.
make sense. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you can look at the hashtags that you've used. Like if you're using Instagram and then you're taking an aggressive approach organically by using all 30 hashtags. If you're mixing them up and you're noticing, like it's kind of hard to track manually. If you're noticing that particular hashtags that have been doing really well on these different posts for you over others, and you can maybe leverage these hashtags down the road or use the words in your copy, sometimes that will pay off, or just noticing the amount of interaction based on the topic you're talking about. If you posted an article, so you know what people are looking for, like, oh, sustainability and environment through LinkedIn seems to be a popular topic in LinkedIn right now. Or I noticed that with LinkedIn, it's all about like, it's been mental health and it's been burnout. That's like the hot topic that's been on LinkedIn right now. So if you have like a spa or a therapy, you're a therapist, I mean, you'd be killing it on LinkedIn right now if you did some organic stuff. Uh,
And
so you,
that's where you always have to stay on top of the trends of the
yeah,
time and maybe
yeah.
put together that budget pool and have some creative there. So when it's timely, you can supplement and jump in, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, makes sense.
I just have a glossary sheet, like I mentioned. It's not too big. Just a couple of the keywords that I've mentioned, and then finally, I just have a connect page. So again, so my name is Laura Parks, not Sarah, and that is if you look me up on LinkedIn, I'm very heavily on LinkedIn. It's my favorite platform. That is what my page looks like personally. If you want to connect with me, my website is just phantommediaservices.ca. I pretty much dominating like the Phantom Media Services organic right now in search. There's probably like you probably can't miss me. Social media, again, I have a Phantom Media Services LinkedIn page. So that's what that looks like. My logo there, and then we're on Facebook as well. I'm not using Facebook as much. It's just not the right fit right now. So again, just very heavily on LinkedIn. But yeah, you can connect with me on Facebook too if you want.
Wow. Laura, thank you. That was incredibly informative. I could pull out sections of that and have more in-depth conversations about it. I think you've piqued our interest and gave us a lot to think about. I do encourage you all to reach out to Laura and check out her website and connect with her on LinkedIn, as she mentioned. She has ongoing content to share and little tips of advice for advertising. So thanks, Laura. And we are over time, and I'm really great to stay for some Q&A. I know we have one in the chat right now, so anyone who has questions, please feel free to ask. Drop it in the chat for us. So, Laura, one of the questions is that someone has an ad budget of $500 as a scenario for paid Facebook ads. How much would an ad agency charge extra to run that ad professionally? And the second part of that question is, do they guarantee monthly results?
Is it 500 a month or is it like
Yeah.
500? Okay, they probably won't even accept it. There's a lot of agencies that just turn down budgets of that amount, and they'll probably just come back to you and say you'll need to run at least $2,000 a month. I've seen it happen a lot of times. I'm doing a lot of freelancing right now, just because, given the economic situation, a lot of companies have been switching to wanting to go with like media agencies and paying the margin, because the margin is quite hefty. It's like they're charging probably a 20% margin, and then sometimes there's fees and commissions in there. And like surprisingly, the large guys, the large companies are paying like 40% in just commissions, fees, and margins, and probably don't even know it. Um, so 60% of their budget is actually going towards buying spots in on websites and in social and stuff like that. It's I mean, you do the research, you just poke around a bit. Um, so they'll probably it'd be like probably a 20% margin, and or they won't even accept it. So you're probably best looking for a freelancer to just give you their hours that they would put on your business to run something with that much budget. They would probably itemize the tasks and give you a quote. Like even through COVID, there's so many businesses that needed help that there's a lot of just volunteering I was doing. They had these small budgets, and I was just like, okay, I'll just do it for free. Just just let me help you.
But you have your business now too, and the value of hiring an independent like yourself, who has experience, who did run with agencies that were large and did all the work. You have all that knowledge and expertise. Now you can support the smaller companies, and if you do your job well and you build those relationships, they're going to make more money. They're going to have more ad spend. It really is that win-win
Mhm.
situation. So how do you guarantee, like, do you offer any type of guarantee when you do put an ad out?
No, there's no
No.
guarantee. I'll do an audit. I'll do a full audit of like every platform that a client is on. And I'll look at the website and I'll just make a deck just to show them like what they should do organically, the alterations they should make, and that should increase a bit of brand awareness and engagement there. And then we can start talking about budget. But sometimes, like I have a client right now where I'm having to look at all their past reporting to see what an ideal budget what amount of money would make sense on a monthly basis based on their past performance and just making some alterations. But there's no guarantee. I can't say like this for sure will increase conversions by 35%. Like there's nothing like that, especially in this economy right now with COVID. Anybody's game.
So you've mentioned too before that organic is really important. Do your free stuff, make sure your brand is all there. So what do you say to a client that has not done that, doesn't have a strong brand awareness, but wants to now pay, thousands of dollars to drive traffic to a website that's not ready or doesn't have brand? What would you say to them?
I'd probably still work with them. um, I would, like I said, I'd build a deck. I would show them what they could be doing and what they should be doing. I can't give them a number, like a guaranteed number to like, oh, if you do this, that means you would get this much traffic on your website. There's no such algorithm, there's no such formula. But I would say to them, I heavily recommend it and might even just say, give me access, I'll do both. I'll do both your organic. Let's bulk that up and we'll do paid, but this is how we're going to do paid. I don't know. I'm kind of like bullheaded in that sense as well. I'm a very straight shooter. I do not fluff, which is probably why I'm not working in the big agencies anymore. Uh,
But you're entrepreneurial. Like that's the kind of spirit, and entrepreneurs don't have time to go through all the fluff and all those different things. So we're glad that you're out there helping our entrepreneurs. There is a question too about measuring the campaign performance, and I know you did
oh
touch
yeah.
on it, but is there some key takeaways we can talk about measuring
Um,
performance?
yeah, you want to make sure that you have a click-through rate above 0.08%, and you want to be at least at you want to make sure that you're at zero point 0.1. Um, anything above zero point 0.1, if you've got like a 0. Or sorry, I should clarify. Social click-through rates are going to be different. Um, like a 0.34 is average for social. If you're just doing digital standard display, you want to make sure that you're in the zero point 0.1 zone and you're above 0.8. 0.8 is like 0.08, sorry, is average. Um, and you want to make sure that you don't have ads running on accidental clickable apps. that's also going to just like inflate your click-through rate. So you could be like looking at your impressions, your clicks, like, wow, that's a lot of good clicks. That's amazing. And then your click-through rate, I mean, when you look at your web analytics, you really have to marry the two. You're constantly looking at your web analytics with your campaign performance metrics, and that's how you're getting the full story. You can't just take one and not the other. Because yeah, that's how you determine the quality of audience that's landing on your site. Is it just people that are accidentally clicking?
Because so there's options, and I'm not sure if I have this right, but where you can pay for impressions or click-throughs, right? Is that an option on some advertising?
Yeah, it depends on what you're promoting. Um, it depends on what you're promoting. Normally, I go with a CPM though. I've always done really well just in the CPM rate as opposed to the CPC rate area. Um, Conversions, make sure that you always are running with the intent of conversions, not just an awareness campaign. So make sure that if you can get like your social media pixels enabled on your website and then link them with your campaign, make sure you are doing that. I know that can be a little tricky sometimes. Yeah.
Now, isn't there problems though with pixels now with this cross, you can opt out of sharing data from one app to another? Does
Yeah.
that affect your pixel?
Yeah. No, so gosh, I'm still experimenting with the new, what is it, iOS 14. I haven't run a campaign in that environment yet, but what I'm doing is that, like, for example, in 2018, Facebook revised their algorithms to function more like Google. So what ended up happening was they suggested to their clients to stop running, to stop building Facebook ads where you were targeting specific audience interests. And they said instead, make sure you're set up with the Facebook pixel, their conversion layering that they also offer in their data science segment or section of Facebook. And they said just put in a demo and a geo and then link the conversions and then let Facebook do the rest. And I saw a 35 to 40% conversion lift. In 5 of my clients when I did that throughout 2018, 2019, 2020. And the theory still applies to even with being able to opt out now or make sure that your ads being shown to you are customized. It's like, think of it as like another layer, and it's a more cost efficient way, in my opinion, in the end, to know that you're possibly reaching now a more exact audience. And you're not missing out on them because you're doing the broad approach and filtering down to the right audience. Um, but it's like, again, I'm still experimenting with the new operating system challenges that they have right now. But my theory, I think so that's my hypothesis. And I think when I start completing these campaigns, I think my approach is correct. I would just do as much conversion pixeling as possible and stay away from entering like custom audiences, custom segments, that sort of thing.
That is really helpful. Like for me, that last little piece there, I think that's a really good takeaway for me amongst all of the other information. And thank you for spending a few extra minutes with us, Laura, to answer some of these questions. Really good information. I'm glad we have this available as a recording afterwards and that our replay audience also will be able to enjoy this. So thanks again, Laura. I will be sending out an email with everything to everyone. If you are listening in as a replay, please check out in the comments below for a link to more of our other recordings and our whole digital marketing series and Laura's information. So Laura, thanks again for joining us as an
Thanks for having
expert
me.
speaker. And thanks everyone for joining us today and have a good day and all the best with your businesses.